Okay, we are resuming our hearing of August 6th. We have Brattleboro Memorial Hospital's budget presentation. I'll turn it to Mark Hengsler to swear in the witnesses. Unless he's not here, in which case I'll try and remember it. Who's testifying? Ms. Bruno, Mr. Doherty, anyone else?
Dr. Avdich, Jackie Ethier, Zach Beltate, and
Peter
Peter Blackmer.
Blackmer.
Yes.
Okay. Could you all raise your right hand, please? Do you promise to give the whole truth, nothing but the truth, and the entire truth in connection with the matter under consideration?
I do.
Yes.
Do. All right, I got about 80% of that right. Anyway, please take it away.
You did good. And thank you, Chair Foster, and thank you, Green Mountain Care Board. Believe it or not, we look forward to this annual tradition, a chance for us to learn, a chance for us to grow, a chance for us to hopefully continually improve. So thanks for your time today. Is there a way to get our slides up there? Oh, thank you.
Gina's sharing.
Okay, thanks. So I'm just going to give a quick overview about Brattleboro Memorial Hospital. We are a small rural community hospital in the southeastern corner of Vermont. We are actually 121 years old. In that time, we have become a cherished community treasure. In that time, in those 121 years, we've certainly faced a number of challenges. And right now we have a 100% success rate of getting through those challenges. Whatever challenges face us today, and there are many, we want to continue that 100% success rate. Just a couple of other quick things that make us a little bit unique. Brattleboro Memorial Hospital is the only Medicare-dependent hospital in the state of Vermont. We also get a low volume adjustment from CMS, which does make us a bit unique. To make us even a little bit more unique, we're one of only 10 hospitals in the entire United States invited to participate in a rural community hospital demonstration project, which is another CMS Center of Innovation payment model reform program. And Chair Foster, at some time, it may be good for us to even sit down offline and talk about what that is and what that means at some point. Next slide, please, Gina. So BMH, like most small rural community hospitals throughout the United States, is facing some very challenging financial times. And it's for a myriad of reasons. And that has really created a much more iterative process of getting a board-approved budget. Our community board, I think many of those members are actually sitting in here today, take their fiduciary responsibility very seriously, as they should. And so this year, we have had a very back and forth process to come up with a budget that could be approved by the board and that staff believes can be delivered upon. So it was, after about 3 months of back and forth with our board, a wonderful, engaged board, we got an approved budget as they saw it to be responsible, reasonable, responsive to the needs of the community, and certainly supportive of our mission and vision. Next slide, please, Gina. Well, Chair Foster, you said what better way to spend an August afternoon than this? Well, there is a better way at the end of August, and that's at the U.S. Open tennis tournament. I'm not a big tennis fan, but I do know that this quote, one of my favorite quotes, is actually brought to us through the U.S. Open. So I'll connect that in a second here. So it seems like these, times like these, when you're facing real financial challenges and they're pressing very hard like they are on BMH, it's really easy to feel overwhelmed. And it's very easy to feel like there's nothing that can be done. But I'm reminded and inspired of something very powerful, and it's something that Billie Jean King once said, and that is pressure is a privilege. In fact, this actually sits over the entrance to center court at the US Open. So the last thing every player sees as they enter center court is this quote, pressure is a privilege. So why is pressure a privilege for Brattleboro Memorial Hospital in these days? Well, because pressure means that we are entrusted with something that matters. It means our community believes in us. It means lives depend on our care, our compassion, and our courage. BMH is not just a hospital. We are, in fact, a lifeline for our community. We are a place where neighbors care for neighbors, where hope is restored, and where healing begins. The weight that we feel is not a burden. It's actually far from it. It's a badge of honor. It's proof that what we do is vital, certainly vital for our community. This pressure actually fuels our purpose. Next slide, please, Jana. So our purpose is found at the center of this diagram. That is our vision that our community board came up with. And it's a vision for a healthy community where everyone thrives. And the way we actually can succeed in fulfilling that lofty vision is really by having an emphasis on community health and well-being, having an emphasis on building partnerships within the community, and an emphasis on innovation. And I believe what you'll hear today is how that emphasis is being lived out each day here at BMH. On the outside of this ring are the 7 key strategic priorities that fuel our fiscal year 2026 budget. And you're going to be hearing from some of the talented leaders around BMH about these 7 key strategic priorities. Next slide, please, Jana. And I'm going to turn it over to Zach Bell-Tate to talk about the first key strategic priority, which is elevating the health of the community.
Thank you, Chris. So to kick us off with the first strategic priority of elevate the health of the community, I first want to start and share that we're proud to share that BMH was recognized in the top decile nationally for the community benefit from the Loan Institute. This recognition reflects our commitment to serving and investing in the health of our community. That said, take a few moments to spotlight some of the impactful work and collaborations we're working towards as an organization. First, Mobile Integrated Health. This is a collaboration with Rescue Inc., where we deliver in-home needs-based care to our Vermonters. This program has led to measurable reductions in emergency department visits and hospital readmissions. And it is a prime example of how proactive community-based care can improve access, outcomes, and lower healthcare costs. Next, to highlight the Federally Qualified Health Center, we're collaborating with an established FQHC in Senator Sanders' office to bring an FQHC to Windham County, which is the only county without an FQHC in the state of Vermont. This effort aims to fill gaps, enhance health equity, and to sustainably serve our community with affordable, accessible care. And the last one I want to highlight is Windham Aging. With the average age of both Vermont and Windham County rising, we are committed to striving to becoming an age-friendly hospital to meet the needs of our aging population. This includes collaborations with local organizations to address the unique healthcare and social needs of older adults, helping them age with dignity, support, and access to care. So in summary, these programs and partnerships reflect our mission-driven focus to improve community health, reduce disparities, and bring care to the community we serve. So with that said, I will hand it over to Jackie Ethier, our Chief Nursing Officer.
Thank you, Zach. On the next slide, we're focused on our continuing efforts to improve quality and safety through innovation. We wanted to highlight for you some of our ongoing improvements and innovations. We are recognized amongst the top 10% of hospitals nationwide for our success in avoiding overuse and prioritizing patient-centered care by the Loan Institute. As Zach mentioned, our mobile integrated health pilot, a partnership with Rescue, providing paramedic support in their homes. This pilot is driving a decrease in ED visits, a decrease in readmissions, improving outcomes, and most importantly, ensuring that patients can stay in their homes, which is important to all of us. We have increased our colorectal cancer screening rates significantly, and our continuous improvement in care for congestive heart failures has been recognized by the American Heart Association as we progress in our Get With the Guidelines initiatives. As Zach also mentioned, we're actively focused on optimizing age-appropriate care, implementing strategies recommended by the Institute for Healthcare Improvement to drive towards that recognition of an age-friendly health system. So a lot of effort in those spaces. I am handing off to our Chief Human Resources Officer, Peter Blackmer.
Going to turn on my mic. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to talk about the hospital's commitment to a culture of inclusion and some of the steps we're taking to build a community of inclusion for our patients, for our role in the community, but also the culture of inclusion for all of our employees to improve our ability to provide services to our community and our patients. So I want to first recognize that the Loan Institute has recognized our commitment to racial inclusivity here, and that is the result of some very diligent work of our JEDI committee, Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee, that looks at the ways in which we build welcoming cultures for all diversity, not just racial or ethnic, but religious, age, gender identity, all of the demographics of the communities that we serve. Also, in terms of health equity, because everything is important to the health outcome of the patient. So improving our staff's ability to be sensitive and comfortable and knowledgeable of diversity improves their ability to deliver quality patient outcomes. And we have connected to those two things, and we've been recognized for them as well. Jack, next one. Thank you very much. In part, that work is also happening from where we are working on workforce development, developing our in-house talent, developing work pipelines in the local community at both entry level and mid-level opportunities for employees. And we've been recognized for our commitment to pay equity. The distance between entry-level salaries and our highest administrators is within the range that recognizes our commitment to pay equity across the institution. One I want to draw particular attention to is our Smart and Strategic Hiring Committee. We do have limited resources, and we are making hiring decisions based on specific operational needs, and particularly front-facing patient safety oriented positions are our top priority. And we are looking at all the ways in which we can reorganize, we can make efficient in every opportunity to hire staff into the workforce. The workforce development and diversity workforce outreach is critically important. Building the pipelines for future healthcare workers or any type of profession within a hospital, not just healthcare, but facilities maintenance, administrative support. We are working with our local community partners to develop interests in young people, particularly through our technical trade partners, through the Boys and Girls Club. We are highlighting the economic opportunities to enter the fields of healthcare. Finally, we are committed to doing diversity sensitivity trainings and exposing every member of our community to the opportunity to increase their knowledge, their comfort level, their sensitivity to the variety of the human experience, to facilitate the highest level of patient experience and outcomes. With that, I will turn it over. I think it's Dr. Avdich.
Good afternoon. I am going to talk about the strategic priority for BMH of delivering exceptional patient and family experience. We are again recognized as among the top 10 hospitals nationwide for patient satisfaction. Our current initiatives and our ongoing initiatives include patient, family, and advisory council formation in this year, which is comprised of several community members as well as hospital staff members. And the purpose of it is to increase family and caregiver involvement in the care planning and system improvement. This council is meeting regularly and addressing various needs from patient perspective. To that extent, we have also launched a family inclusion task force as a direct response to the patient survey satisfaction results in order to develop and implement strategies that enhance both patients, family, as well as their support person involvement in the care decisions. Additional priority for our patient-centered care is a customer service focus with rolling out and supporting staff in developing aided approach to communication with patients. Aided is a communication framework used in healthcare to bring back customer-centered approach as well as humanity to the healthcare and every decision and every interaction with patients that we do. So it includes acknowledging patients or introducing ourselves, acknowledging patient and why they're here, explaining the duration of a test or a procedure, explaining what exactly are we doing to a patient, and thanking them for their presence here and allowing us to care for them. It is found to improve patient interaction, found to improve empathy within the healthcare staff, as well as to lead to better outcomes. And again, our overall goal is for yearly increase in HCAHPS scores to match our commitment to patient-centered care. Next slide. Our focus continues to be on avoidable harm elimination and ongoing patient safety. To that effect, we have developed and monitor closely a comprehensive Eliminate Avoidable Harm scorecard that is comprised of elements such as various preventable infection monitoring, preventable other events such as venous thromboembolism, monitoring of medication errors, monitoring of positive patient identification, as well as focus on event reporting and minimizing serious reportable events. We are strongly focused on culture of safety and have worked very hard to create a culture where employees feel empowered to report hazardous or near hazardous situations, and where that is an expectation and professional responsibility of all of us working in BMH. To that effect, over the last several years, we have seen increase in number of safety events reporting. We have increased a number of root cause analyses that we do, and that has directly led to a significant reduction in number of serious reportable events. This enormous work has been rewarded, and in a fiscal year 2025 and for fiscal year 2026, Medicare CMS is awarding us extra bonus to our value-based purchasing, which is Medicare withholds about 2% of annual reimbursement for the hospital care, and then based on various safety and other measures, they either give it back to hospital if they meet or exceed expectations, or continue to withhold that money. So for the 2 years in a row, we have achieved and overachieved those measures. And with that, I will conclude and pass it over to Laura.
Thank you, Dr. Avdich. My name is Laura Bruno. I'm the Chief Financial Officer here at BMH. And I'm going to start off by talking about our performance year to date, May in fiscal 25, and then lead into what we're doing to improve our performance in fiscal year 25. And then I will discuss our plans for fiscal year 26 and our budget. So we have had a difficult first 3 quarters of FY25. And I wanted to walk through where we are in terms of our P&L. In terms of our gross revenues, as of May, we are actually in line with our budget year to date. Although we have some bucketing issues between inpatient and outpatient, which I have fixed for our budget in FY26. But we're very pleased to see that actually we're flat to budget on our gross revenue line as of May. And I think, I'm hopeful that that favorability will continue throughout the 4th quarter of this year. Our net patient revenue is under budget by 3.7% or $2.4 million. There's a couple of drivers on that line. One is our contractual. We've been having a struggle with our contractual adjustments. We also budgeted higher than we have received on fundraising, and our capitation revenue from OneCare was we're experiencing more downside on capitation than we had budgeted for. So contractual adjustments, I wanted to talk a little bit about. As I discussed last year in our budget hearing, we were part of kind of the Change Healthcare cyber attack, and in the first quarter of this year, we took a pretty significant adjustment to our contractual allowance line to increase our AR reserves. It was a $1.5 million adjustment that was recommended to us by our audit firm, and so that's part of this number. The other aspect that is impacting our contractual adjustments is that our AR is too high for the size of our organization. So we're about a $300 million gross revenue organization. Our AR is at about 38 million, which is creating a drag on our balance sheet and our P&L that we need to fix. And so our goal is to get our AR down to kind of a $25 to $28 million level. And I believe that will alleviate a lot of pressure on this line of our P&L as well as on our balance sheet. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in the coming slides. But those are kinds of dynamics within our net patient revenue. We also, had a higher than normal bad debt number for the beginning of this year, which we're working on and have some initiatives in place to correct for that. So there were some headwinds for us in the deductions to revenue section of our P&L. And then our net operating revenue is a 3.4 million lower than budget, which sets us up, poorly for the total P&L. I want to talk through each of these operating expense lines. Wages were favorable by 3%. We've been putting a lot of focus into right sizing our staffing model. And I'll talk a little bit more about this. We have a hiring freeze in play. And so we are getting some favorability on our wage line from those elements. Benefits, we have faced some headwinds this year. We actually switched our benefits purveyor in January from Health Plans Inc. to CBA Blue, which is a Massachusetts branch of Blue Cross. We are actually seeing some favorability on our premiums for the employee health benefits, but we have a few employees and spouses of employees that are driving individual claim values that are quite high and above where we budgeted, and we're a self-funded plan. And so we, up to a certain stop loss threshold, we will take the impact of the value of those claims. And so that's what you're seeing in this negative variance of 1.8 million. The other impact that's in there is our pharmacy benefit for employees, where we are overspending on certain drugs, and we're doing some research into our plan to see if we can alleviate some of that financial pressure on the organization. Contract labor, we struggle with, attracting and retaining full-time employees in some of the patient-facing areas. And so we will always rely to a certain extent on contract employees. This overspend year-to-date May is really driven mostly by some of the allied health areas. As you may know, we replaced our MRI in May, actually, of this year. And we had, at the time when we replaced it, we had 3 travelers as MRI techs running the new machine and running a mobile MRI unit while we install the new machine. We have since converted all 3 of them to FTE MRI techs, which I'm really happy about. We've been able to really lessen our reliance on travelers in the RN space, though, situations are always changing. But I'm hopeful that we can continue to lower this number as we move forward. Contract medical specialists. So this is a line where we typically report our expense to our ED clinician partner, which was at this point Cheshire Medical Center, and our anesthesia service. The other piece that's driving it over budget by 311,000 is that we needed to bring on some locums for our hospitalist area. We have since converted those positions to full-time hospitalists, so I'm looking to see some favorability on the back half of the year in this line. Contracted services, this is where a lot of our consulting spend, legal spend, and contract in terms of, all of our IT contracts, all of our really larger vendor contracts fall into this bucket. In FY25, we have isolated about 1.5 million of this overspend of 2.2. That is non-recurring spend, so it's a one-time hit. So we anticipate improving significantly on this line in FY26. I budgeted it up from where we budgeted in 25, but it's sort of in between the 25 spend and the 26 projection is an increase on the 25 budget, but an improvement on the 25 projection in actuals. Med-surg supplies, very pleased to see that this line is sort of practically flat to budget. I think this is attributable to our joined membership in the New England Collaborative. We're getting better pricing on some of our equipment that we purchase for orthopedics and all of the supplies that we purchase organization-wide. So we're happy to see that this line is improving. Drugs, full transparency, I feel that we under budgeted dramatically on this line for this year, and we're just overspending on it. A little more than half of the total actual here of 6.3 is our oncology infusion cost. So we're budgeting higher in FY26 for drugs, but it's difficult to predict with inflation and tariffs where this line will go. Other supplies and expenses, I'm happy to see that we are favorable on this line. I think it's due to the fact that we have negotiated some, better contracts on fuel. and some of our utilities. We also offset a lot of our electrical costs with by purchasing solar credits. And so we're performing well on this line. Depreciation and amortization is pretty much flat. We don't have any major capital projects in the works. We were a little over on healthcare provider tax, and it all sort of adds up to an overspend of 6.5 million against our operating expense budget, which we know is unsustainable and untenable. We've been working with our bank, M&T Bank, which is our sole bondholder, in terms of reporting against our debt covenants. So we have 3 debt covenants that we report on a biannual basis. We reported in the end of FY24 on the rolling 12 months prior, and we triggered our debt covenant for debt service coverage ratio in that period. Our other 2 we satisfied. In the period, the reporting period of March 31st, 2025, we also triggered our debt service coverage ratio. We have since received waivers from our bank on both of those time periods. We've been sharing with the bank all of our savings plans, which I'm also going to share with you in the coming slides. Next. So the balance sheet, I just wanted to give a snapshot of where we are on the balance sheet. I believe it's improving, but we have some ways to go to get to where I think we need to be. Our balance sheet in general is strong. Most of our assets are in our buildings here on the facility, and that the value of those will not diminish. Couple of things I want to call your attention to here in the year-over-year change. So you can see there's a prior year 5/31/24. If you look at the total current assets, we were at about 37 million. That's really driven by the value of the AR. Our AR was at 50 million at that point in the year after Change Healthcare happened. And we're down to 33 million. This is a lot of good work that's going into improving our AR and our revenue cycle performance from my team in revenue cycle and finance. The net plan assets line has stayed relatively flat. This is obviously the value of our buildings and the assets that we have. The other line that I would, focus on is total current liabilities, where because our working capital has been challenged in the last couple of months, our AP has grown a bit beyond where we'd like to be, and so we're working on bringing our AP down. So we need to increase cash, decrease receivables, and decrease our payables. So we're very focused on improving our working capital. Next. This slide is a kind of a pictorial representation of what we're doing in response to where we are financially. So we fully recognize that we are in a very bad financial condition, and we are taking a lot of actions to improve that condition and to establish sustainability for the future of this hospital. This was kind of an initial diagram that we created to acknowledge the fact that operational changes have financial impacts, but they also have cultural impacts on an organization. And so on the y-axis, you'll see, potential financial impact, low or high. And on the bottom x-axis, we're trying to estimate what a potential negative cultural impact of a change would be, low or high. And so we also have this black sort of curved line that comes through the diagram. what we want to do is stay away from anything to the right of this line, because anything to the right of this line would be a high negative cultural impact and a low positive financial impact. So this is the kind of thing that we don't want to do a project like that. We want to align our incentives with our organization so that, you know, if we do something that it has a high financial impact, it should also have, you know, preferably, you know, a favorable cultural impact. So the bottom left quadrant really is kind of, you can think of it as low hanging fruit. So we should be able to tackle these projects relatively easily. And we are engaged in most of these projects at this point. And they should have very little cultural impact on the organization. So one example here is credit card policies. We put an updated policy in place about the use of corporate credit cards and individual credit card spend so that we could control discretionary spending in the organization. And it's working, and we're seeing the results of that in our financials. Pretty low cultural impact there. On the upper left quadrant, there's a green square that is MRI volume increases. So as I mentioned, we purchased a new MRI machine. We want to maximize the usage of that machine. It can do faster scans, and it can do a wider variety of scans than our previous machine could do. So we want to grow with the machine and allow it to improve our volumes and utilization so that we can serve more patients and improve our financial health. On the kind of top right corner, you know, these are projects that might have a negative cultural impact. And so, but we feel that we can't really improve our financial performance without going into this top right quadrant, because there are some of the kind of bigger opportunities there. So one of them that I'd like to highlight is staffing to volume. We have brought on a new benchmarking software system and stood it up in the past couple of months. Strata Comparative Analytics, which compares our financial results in productivity and efficiency of our workforce to our peer group across the country. So our peer group is really hospitals with 26 to 99 beds. And we are working on collating that data. We have cascaded it to each of our directors, and we're asking them to make changes and think of changes that they could make that move us closer to the 75th percentile. So it's our goal ultimately to get to 75th percentile productivity performance across the board. We know that, you know, there's a lot of work that would have to happen to get us from here to there, but that's where we're focused. Next. Thank you. Oops, sorry, 1 second. So what we are actually working on right now, I wanted to give you a list of kind of the projects that we have live currently. I mentioned earlier that we enacted a hiring freeze on in the beginning of April of 25. We have started to see a lot of the benefit and favorability of that in our wage line. And really, this is just allowing attrition to happen. And as Peter mentioned, we formed a smart hiring committee, which is reviewing any job requisitions that are posted by our leaders and assessing each one of those for the critical nature of the role, whether it's a patient-facing role, whether it's a safety-related role. And we are hiring for people with those stipulations. But we have been able to, I would say, eliminate a lot of the just kind of assumed administrative hiring and replacement of vacancies with this hiring freeze. Revenue cycle optimization. So I talked a little bit about this earlier, but we're working on reducing our AR from 38 million where it is today to 28 million or lower over the next couple of months. And we're going to do that through management of denials and really focusing on streamlining our billing practices and getting after some of the more aged buckets of our receivable that, frankly, were sort of neglected over the past handful of years in this organization. I believe that by doing this work, we will create the fundamentals for a really strong future. Centralizing registration. So we currently register all of our patients in the location in which they are receiving a service. So we have about 14 different locations that a patient can, where a patient can be registered. I have a project in my revenue cycle team to centralize the registration processes to 2 central registration desks, one in our main lobby, which already exists, and another which we are actually building as we speak in the Richards building lobby, which is where our lab and radiology are located. And so by centralizing, we can standardize a process and improve the collection of data for our patients and improve the quality of data that goes into our billing process. Productivity benchmarking I talked about. We're working with Strata and Axiom in comparative analytics to align to standard. We know, anecdotally that we're inefficient in some areas. We want to make data-driven decisions on how to staff to volume. And as I said earlier, our goal is to achieve the 75th percentile performance over time across the organization. We did a small reorganization in our administrative functions. I think it's important to note that there were no collective bargaining unit employees impacted by the restructure that we did in the month of June. The focus of this restructure was really streamlining some of our upper management and leadership functions. We're asking people to take on more responsibility and to eliminate some of the spans and layers of leadership so that we can get to kind of a better organizational structure. Establishment of an FQHC. So we're working with a partner in an FQHC and Senator Sanders' office to build an FQHC in Windham County. This will be a benefit to the community in expanding access to primary care. It will be a benefit to us in some cost reduction on the employees that would work in that FQHC. ACO MSSP, this is an accountable care organization, Medicare shared savings program. So we have sought a replacement of One Care Vermont Medicare reimbursement and have partnered with, have chosen to partner with an organization called Belong, which I believe also Southwestern is joining starting January 1st. And so, we're happy to have the continuation of that value-based care in our network. We also joined the New England Collaborative Health Network as a group purchasing organization. We're one of the founding members of that group. We're starting to really measure and track the savings associated to membership with that group now, and I think we're going to see some exciting benefits. We have solicited ideas from our team, from our entire employee base on how to improve our financial performance, and we're calling it Bright Ideas, Healthy Futures. So it's a program to promote, feedback from hospital employees so that, we're all a part of this organization. We all want to see it succeed. And we've actually gotten a lot of really positive ideas from our employee base, both on increasing revenue and decreasing cost. So it's been a very positive move. Next. Okay. This is the FY26 budget. So the highlighted blue column in the middle is the FY26 budget. This kind of feels like a wall of numbers a little bit. So revenues, you can look at it versus the current year budget column, which is the second from the left column. So total patient revenue, we're relatively flat to our FY25 budget. So what happened in, and I'll talk a little bit about the revenue dynamics more in a second, but we're losing our ED professional fees, and which is about a little over 5 million. Our rate increase will drive us up a certain amount, and then our MRI volume projected will drive us up. So we're ending up about flat to where we budgeted for FY25. We're holding all the other areas of the hospital relatively flat. I don't think we're in a growth moment in most of those areas in terms of utilization. So we're holding steady at 299. In terms of deductions, we are down a bit because we budgeted a decrease in I'm hoping for a decrease in the amount of write-offs that we do for bad debt and free care in total. Obviously, we want to promote our free care program, but bad debt, we would like to scale back a bit. We've taken some significant write-offs on that line, which we're working actively with our self-pay vendor to get some additional control over. Our contractuals are relatively flat. Net patient revenue is budgeted to be up about 2.6% versus budget, which is within the guidance from Green Mountain Care Board. Other operating revenue, the things that are driving that number, slight decrease in our capitation revenue projected. We wanted to be kind of conservative. We don't know exactly what will happen with the new ACO that we're going to be joining. We budgeted a decrease in our 340B revenue since our status with that program is somewhat in question. We received some data from CMS stating that our Social Security income ratio had decreased under a threshold that would question our participation in the 340B program. So we are currently working with a vendor to try and substantiate data that would allow us to appeal that assertion. So more to come on that. We did build some risk into the budget that we might lose our 340B revenue in the back half of the year.
Sorry, Ms. Bruin, can I interrupt on that? I just wanted to, are you projecting this budget that you will have the 340B revenue or not?
I'm projecting that we will have it in the first half of the year, which we will. CMS will reassess the SSI ratio in March or April of 26.
And then you said
when we submit our cost report, we may fall off the program.
And then
so I took about half of the back half of the revenue off to cushion us if it actually happens.
And how much revenue? What's the dollar value of that?
$700,000.
Thank you.
Okay, so our total operating revenue increase is 1.6% or 1.9 million, which is a pretty conservative increase year on year. The labor line in the operating expenses has wages, benefits, and contract labor included. All in, we're budgeting an improvement of 1.2 million or 1.8% versus the FY25 budget on this line. This reflects really many of our savings initiatives coming into a full run rate in 24 and 26. And many of the initiatives that I've talked about, including reducing our administrative expense, reducing spans and layers of management, It also reflects an increase, a slight increase in contract labor to more closely reflect our current experience and run rate of contract labor. The professional fees contains our ED providers and our anesthesia service. This line is somewhat favorable to the FY25 budget because our ED clinician contract terms have changed. And so we had a little bit of favorability there related to that. We gave away the professional fee revenue and took a fee reduction. Purchase services are a roll-up of many of our IT contracts, as well as consulting services and legal fees. We're budgeting a decrease over FY25 projection because we had, as I mentioned earlier, several large one-time impacts in FY25 that we know are non-recurring. But we know that some of our legal expenses, for example, will continue. So we wanted to kind of establish a middle ground on that line. We did budget up on medical supplies driven, by utilization partly and also by inflation. Drugs, as I mentioned, were under budgeted last year. We're attempting to right size this year. Oncology infusions are the main driver of the spend on that line. All in, we have a small positive margin of $245,000 or 0.1%. Next. Okay, so the rate increase by payer grouping, we're aligning with the guidance on commercial payers, 3%, 2.4%, which is what Medicare has granted, and we will apply that only on our inpatient volume because we're not certain that as a Medicare dependent hospital, we can apply the increase on our OPPS rate. And 0% on Medicaid, so it blends to a 1.5% across the board increase. Our NPR increase, the guidance was 3.4. We're well within the guidance at 1.9%. Operating expense increase, the guidance was 3%, and we are increasing by 1.9%. Key revenue drivers, as I mentioned earlier, we are losing our emergency department professional volume, which is about 5.8 million growth. We are anticipating increasing our MRI and imaging utilization to the tune of about 2.3 million, also gross. Rate increases of this blended 1.5% that I described will account for about 3.7 million gross. Next. Are we stuck? Okay. So the cost assumptions. Wages are budgeted down about 2.8% or 1.5 million, and that's aligning with our savings plan and the projections on savings that we had for, October through September of next year. We're anticipating FTEs to decrease by 5.5%, and this is really our right sizing the organization from our projection. In FY25, we had 543 FTEs. We're projecting a reduction to 513 FTEs, so 30 headcounts. Wage inflation assumption we have loaded at 4% across the board. Employee benefits, we're anticipating a decrease of 3.1%. This is really kind of linear and related to the FTE reduction. The increase in contract labor, which is around 700,000 over what we budgeted in 25, we think will more closely align to our experience rate. Drugs, we increased 1.9 million versus 25 budget, as I said, to right size to what our experience rate is. Inflation rate of 4% has been applied to medical supplies and general supplies. So our capital budget, in FY25, our big capital purchase was the MRI, which was 1.7. It fell under the CON limitations. We are fully integrated in that change and fully activated with the new machine. We also had the benefit of being able to tap into our 2016 bond issuance, which was outside of its spend period, but we had an arbitrage rebate calculation done on our 2016 bonds, and we were cleared to use the remaining $2 million in funds that was on those bonds for long-lived assets that we might want to purchase. So we were very fortunate to be able to use those funds to buy some air handlers that really needed to be replaced, some generators for buildings that we have that were not on generator power. We also replaced a bunch of just patient-facing, bathroom stuff and windows that really improve the overall look and feel. And some of our buildings are aging and we needed to do some improvements. So we were very fortunate to be able to tap into those funds for FY25. For FY26, we have pretty much a standard spend. Happy to report that the majority of our spend will be focused on patient care equipment replacements at 1.4 million. Also some significant spend on diagnostic equipment at $1 million. And then, general plant age of plant repairs at about 400,000, and IT infrastructure upgrades and cybersecurity type work to be done for about 480,000. So all in, our capital budget is 3.3 million. And I'm pretty comfortable with that amount. It's about 1% of our gross revenue budget. Risks and opportunities. So, the number one risk in our budget, I would say, is our potential failure to deliver on our savings plan. So we know that, and we are holding our feet to the fire on delivering on our savings plans and our initiatives, our revenue, both our revenue increasing initiatives and our cost reducing initiatives. We know that we have to return this hospital to a place of sustainability for the future. But it is a risk. As I mentioned, our 340B program revenue is a risk in the back half of FY26. We have 5 newly formed collective bargaining units at BMH, in addition to our existing large nursing union. And there are some unknowns and risks around how that all those negotiations will play out in terms of pay and benefits for the employees. Our ACO revenue stream, though we have signed on with Belong, as I mentioned, we don't know exactly how that will look for us in terms of that capitation revenue. We specifically signed on with them because there, is upside incentive and not a lot of downside risk for us. So we were cognizant of that, but we just don't know exactly how it will line up with the OneCare revenue that we received. Tariffs are an unknown, and then Medicare dependent status and low volume adjustment are extended through September 30th of this year. Beyond that, we don't exactly know what's going to happen with that program. In terms of opportunities, we believe that FQHC is a major opportunity for us, and we're really actively working to make that happen in Windham County. Service line rationalization. So we're looking at our, I would say, kind of slower service lines, looking for economies of scale, looking for ways to drive efficiency in practices where our volumes may be lower, and combining things. We have an active process around that and exploration of whether we can find savings by rationalizing some of our services without reducing anything. Renegotiate. We're always looking at some of our larger contracts as they come up and come due for renegotiation. We're looking to negotiate more favorable terms. As I mentioned earlier, we're staffing to volume according to benchmarks. We have applied for an employee retention credit. We're waiting to hear back on that as a major opportunity for us. And as Chris mentioned, we applied for and were accepted to the Rural Community Hospital Demonstration Project, which would reimburse us more like a critical access hospital. So we think it's an advantage in terms of our Medicare Part A inpatient volume. We also joined on to a Blue Cross Blue Shield class action suit nationally. And we're hopeful that, we might, we don't know exactly what will come of that, but it's an opportunity.
All right. So
I believe I'm
looking
turning
at,
it over to Chris.
yes, thanks. Looking ahead, we are looking at the Act 167 recommendations for the short term that came from Oliver Wyman and from the first cut of the SMART goals that Rural Healthcare Redesign Center is sending out to us. They're very consistent. So we're very much in the midst of implementing these short-term recommendations. You saw Laura and heard Laura talk about the cost reduction strategies. It was Dr. Hamery who said and operate at break even. From his lips to God's ear, we will count on that. But we are striving to do that at this point in time. And in the midst of that, there's also recommendations about collaborating with Grace Cottage and Springfield Hospital to support care in home. And actually, the Rural Healthcare Redesign Center has been truly indispensable to our work in mobile integrated health. And so we've actually got a proposal out there to expand our mobile integrated health program to Grace Cottage and actually have a complete Windham County mobile integrated health program. We're asking for some funds from HRSA. We've applied for a grant for that. I'm also happy to say that we have 2 commercial insurance companies who are starting to be very interested in paying for the work of the community paramedics in our mobile integrated health program. Strengthen our relationship with EMS. Well, our mobile integrated health has been a big part of that. And then we've typically always been involved in a regional specialty group with other hospitals. Most of that has been through Dartmouth. And that is actually becoming much more challenging at this point in time because of the financial situation that Dartmouth Health finds themselves in. So we've lost a lot of that relationship with Dartmouth Health, but we're very hopeful through the New England Collaborative Health Network that we'll be able to start to build a real regional specialty group collaboratively across that. And then again, reimbursement is so chaotic at times. We are very concerned about the fate of Medicare dependent hospital and low volume adjustment. So we have applied for the Rural Community Hospital Demonstration Project and actually been picked to go into that. And then, we can opt out of that or we could continue in that. One of the things that offers us is the opportunity to offer swing beds, which is something we cannot do at this point in time. Laura had also mentioned that as a Medicare dependent hospital, we do not get any of the increases in OPPS. This looks like it would give us the opportunity to get the OPPS increases. And so we're actually going to be meeting with the MAC to find out about that. we're very interested in exploring the Vermont Medicaid global budget. Laura and I have had a meeting with the Medicaid team and the consulting firm that is helping them with that. I believe we have until October to volunteer to participate in that. We're very, very interested in that. We are also very excited about the ACO Medicare Shared Savings Plan. We actually believe we're going to be creating more revenue and income than we received from OneCare in this for traditional Medicare patients, because there are fee-for-service incentives paid for annual Medicare well visits, timely follow-ups for emergency room visits, timely follow-ups for patients discharged from the hospital, that we believe will really achieve some incredible, helpful increases. And then the partnership with the Federally Qualified Health Center is actually our biggest opportunity to really change our financial performance. We're in incredible debt to Senator Sanders for his leadership in this, and we're delighted with the partnership that's developing in this regard. Next slide, please, Gina. All right. So Victor Hugo reminds us that the future is not fixed. It's shaped by those who dare to believe in it. We are not weak. We are not faint-hearted. We are strong. And we're strong because we care deeply. We care deeply for our community, for the patients we serve, for each other, and for the vision and mission that we hold here and that brought us to work at Brattleboro Memorial Hospital. We are strong because we adapt, innovate, and persist. And we are strong because we know that the ideal future is not a distant dream, but it is something we build together, step by step, with courage and conviction. And with that, Chair Foster, I believe that is the end of our presentation, sir.
Thank you all very much for walking us through that. I'll turn to the board for questions, and I'll start with Member Teachout.
Great, thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I do have a few questions, and it was very helpful to hear your explanations after reading your narrative. The first is I would love to hear more detail about what you were doing with your emergency department, migrating to Blue Water Health from your previous partner. You talked a little bit about losing $5 million in, I believe it's professional fees, and then renegotiating, what did you say? Renegotiating something with your, you said a fee reduction? Yeah. So if you could explain a little bit more about what's happening there, that would be helpful.
Sure, please. It's a great question. And so actually it started not because of something we were seeking, but because our partner, Cheshire Medical Center, part of Dartmouth Health, was not able to continue to provide the emergency room coverage that we needed. So they, and a tremendous credit to them, they gave us about a 10-month notice, which thank goodness, because it took about that time. But if you also realize in that time, it looked as though we were going to the ahead model for Medicaid, Medicare, and global budgeting for hospitals. So actually, for us, a better deal would have been to let go of that net patient revenue to an outside contractor, because that lowers our costs here, and to actually reduce our expenses by spending less on the coverage. So we negotiated that contract actually when we were still in the midst of believing we were heading into global budgeting, because it would be favorable for a global budgeting model. But what also it does is it gives us an opportunity. This company is very skilled at value-based payment models, is very outcomes driven, and that is really the ED of the future, and we're delighted to have this partnership. So that's why we jumped into this. There was a necessity to find coverage, but then we also found that this really aligned with our strategic direction.
Thank you. Is this part of the reason why there's a decrease in labor expenses, because you're shifting those FTEs out of your hospital, or is that a different issue?
Great question. It's not. They were always contracted services. And so they were showing up, Laura, under contracted medical
Medical
services.
specialists.
Medical specialists. But we actually are able to reduce our cost for those services. They were never employed by us. So these were always contracted services. So there's a reduction in that cost that actually is really better than the real net patient revenue that we would be getting. That 5.8 is a gross, and for emergency room professional fee services, you're lucky if you're getting 25% of that as net.
Okay, and I'm probably stepping, into a little bit of a process you've been doing for quite some time. I also had a question. I wanted to get a little more detail on your accounts receivable and the reasons, that you got so far behind, even though it's clear that you're trying to catch up and right size that. And then whatever your auditor recommended, a little more color there would be helpful as well.
Mhm. Yes. So, I would say over the period, as we're looking back at the balance sheet, I would say over the period of kind of 2021 to 23, our AR had increased pretty dramatically. And there were some efforts made to hire a company that could come in and clear out some aged balances. That company was not successful. And we've had a couple of administrative changes here subsequent to that, where the balance sort of rolled forward, I would say. And then we had the incident with Change Healthcare, where our AR ballooned because our claims were sitting in the system, unable to be released electronically. And so we released as many as we could, but then we had a backlog in AR that persisted for a period of time until we were able to get in there with a company and clear it out to the extent that we have currently. The auditor piece is about our AR reserve, which is essentially a cushion that we keep on the balance sheet for claims that we can't collect on outside of the normal, contractual allowance. And so it's kind of like an insurance policy, and the auditors wanted us to be more conservatively reserved. And so when you increase your AR reserve, it hits the P&L.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
I'm sorry, that's probably confusing, but
I'm absorbing it. I'm trying. So I'm jumping around a little bit randomly. Sorry, I should have organized my questions. But another thing I was curious about is the discussion of pharmacy. And you talk about the increased use of oncology infusions and the costs. It was on one of the pages of your narrative, page 5. But you haven't talked at all about the impact of H266 on your organization. Are you one of the hospitals impacted by the cap on drug prices?
I hate to say this. I think the answer is we're not so sure we are, because if we are in the Rural Community Hospital Demonstration Project, we're actually considered a critical access hospital. We are unique as we started off. It's such a good question, so thank you. And it's probably something that I don't know, Chair Foster, it's probably something we should really dive into as to what this means in terms of the Rural Community Hospital Demonstration Project. For everything else, I mean, like swing beds, OPPS, we're being treated as a critical access hospital if we go into this program. I believe the legislation exempts critical access hospitals from the cap.
That is true. When do you anticipate deciding to go into the program?
Well,
we have to opt in by October 1st.
We've opted in already. We would start October 1st. We owe our board, our community board, a pros, cons, and we have that scheduled for August 22nd. Our goal is, because this would start October 1st, our hope was we would know what the fate of Medicare dependent hospital would be by now. We don't. So we've already opted in. We would opt out prior to October 1st and continue as a Medicare dependent hospital. A long way of saying by the end of August, we should know if we're continuing with the Rural Community Hospital Demonstration Project.
Thank you. That's helpful for me to understand. And then I was going to jump to your new MRI machine and the assumptions you've made about increasing utilization there. Is it, and maybe this is in your spreadsheet and I didn't see it, but are you anticipating higher prices and higher utilization? And do you have concerns about overuse of the MRI?
Oh, no, no higher prices. Our prices will not change unless they're, except for the rate increases that we're applying, that we're discussing today. So the pricing on it will not change. We do expect the volume that we can throughput through the machine to increase because the shorter length of each scan. And we have a more dedicated workforce. We had some staffing issues with it for quite a while. And now we've stabilized the workforce. So it's really a utilization issue.
And actually, just to add to that, the overusage is honestly a tremendous question. One of the biggest challenges, I think, in healthcare in Vermont is managing avoidable utilization. Proud to say that once again, BMH has been recognized by the Loan Institute as actually a top decile performer across all hospitals in the United States, all 3,000 plus, as a lowest overuse ranking for any of the hospitals across the United States. We actually are looking to start to convert our system and our incentives for providers to be based on appropriate and trying to avoid manage away any avoidable utilization possible.
Thank you. I guess this is the combined question, but do you have wait times for MRIs at the moment that you see going away? And then how is prior authorization or the elimination of prior auth from primary care also playing into what's going on with utilization here?
Great question. Yes, and yes, we are very focused right now on eliminating hurdles through prior authorization and, improving our speed from order to scan in our prior authorization process. We've actually centralized all of our prior authorization under a manager on my team. And that includes the MRI piece. We did have a backlog. We are working through that backlog. And our goal is to really make it as much of an efficient process from order to scan as possible. So yeah, we'll get into the scheduling as we clear the prior authorization delays.
And it's typically about a 10-day delay to get scheduled due to prior authorization. So the elimination of that from the primary care orders is going to make a big difference in terms of we're capable of servicing that demand. Right now, it gets bottlenecked because of the prior authorization. And some insurance carriers will tell you they can take up to a month to give you a prior auth for something like that. But it's typically on average about a 10-day delay.
Okay, helpful. Thank you. It's good to hear your insights there. And I'm looking at my questions to make sure I get them all. You did say that you were targeting the 75th percentile for productivity with your new Strata Compare analytics. Where are you currently moving from to the 75th percentile?
So when we look
So-
at the entire
Go ahead.
organization, we're in between the 25th percentile and 50th percentile. So if that's looking at really like worked hours per adjusted patient discharge. But then when you start getting down deep into each specific department, we're finding a smattering of departments that are around 25th percentile. And the goal would not be to jump from 25th percentile to 75th percentile instantaneously. It's actually impossible, but to start a stepwise progression. And the beauty of the system that we're using is it gives you 5% intervals, and it tells you what the worked hours change are, and then it gives you a dollar amount for being able to affect that change. So each department head will have a stepwise approach towards the 75th percentile. Again, we are a low volume adjustment hospital, which means we have a higher fixed cost rate than other hospitals. In fact, the federal government counts that at 25%. So getting to the 75th percentile for some of those areas that don't have a lot of variable, flexible staffing may never be possible, but we'll know that that's because of this fixed issue that we have.
Thank you. It's helpful to hear that. And then my last question is on your employee health insurance benefits. And you talked, I'm very familiar about how individuals can drive up the cost. And you talked a little bit about pharmacy. Are you covering GLP-1s for your employees?
It's been in our formulary for diabetics. It's been in our formulary for morbid obesity, but it has also kind of crept into it for weight loss. And that's something we're working on with our benefits administration, our pharmacy benefits manager, and trying to come up with a really good plan that shows alternatives, because it is probably about 75% of the increased cost. The other big cost is central nervous system medications. Just one medication has been, an over $100,000 increase to our pharmacy benefit costs in this year to date. So trying to figure out ways, making sure that all biosimilars are being explored and that we have a stepwise approach to getting to these. So we are in the midst of working on that. It's another great question. Thank you.
Thank you for answering all my questions. I'll pass it to the next person.
Member Walsh?
Yep, thank you. And Chris and Laura and team, before I begin, I just want to acknowledge both the tone and the intent of your presentation. You're clearly striving to align your mission and your budget. And I want to recognize the awards that you've received from the Lown Institute. That deserves to be noted and celebrated. So well done. I also want to acknowledge the effort underway to develop a safety culture and your Bright Ideas Healthy Futures program. That intent to engage your workforce in harm reduction and cost savings is innovative, and I find it encouraging. All that said, the board has a duty to ensure that the financial documentation that you submit meets the standards required by our statutes and rules. And so today I'm going to ask some questions intended to surface whether further support or improvement may be needed to ensure your documents' transparency, the solvency of your organization, and alignment with community need. So to start off, and anyone can answer this, can you walk me through how your finance team ensures your materials meet the board standards before you submit them?
Yes, so I have a small team in finance. It's actually just me and one financial analyst that are working on our submissions to Green Mountain Care Board. There were some issues with our documentation, I think in FY24, that the team has called out that we have done our best to fix. And I've changed my process going forward on reviewing those.
Okay. So one of my next questions was the number of full-time staff that support the operations. It sounds like it's 2.
Yes.
And have you encountered any specific barriers this year, personnel, technical, structural, things that are different that interfered with preparing and submitting the documentation?
Well, our financial condition has really interfered with preparing and submitting the documentation. Yes, I've been fully focused on the survival of the hospital. And so, yes, I mean, I'll take ownership that there was probably less focus on reporting.
Was there any external support that you turned to compile this year's budget with respect to the adaptive entries, variance tracking, the different things that are asked?
What do you mean by external support?
Some organizations use consultants or outside vendors to help with the preparation of these documents.
No.
How confident is your leadership team in the accuracy of the income statement, balance sheet, rate assumptions that you've provided to us?
Confident. I mean, they can speak to that.
Yeah, yes, very confident in the accuracy of what's been provided.
So I'd like to shift for a second and ask a couple questions that are more general and not as specific budget-wise. When you were looking to seek savings in your budget submission this year, what trade-offs did you consider? What did you decide not to do?
So in terms of the reductions that we have decided not to do, it was eliminate any service lines. Our goals, we're doing everything that we have within our power to avoid service line elimination and any excessive reduction in force. So none of that has actually been, those are things that have been decided not to go into. So there's those 2 are really at the high end of it. I think the other high end of it is moving from independence, from being an independent hospital to being owned by a system. That also was something we did not budget. Those are the things that, as Laura pointed out, were potentially high positive financial impact, but also very high potential negative cultural impact. And so we have stayed away from those things that could have that high potential negative impact on culture.
I appreciated that. And I appreciate the 4 quadrants. That slide I thought was very well done. And I think I asked this a few moments ago, but I want to be sure. I was asking about balance sheets and income statements, but beyond the GMCB finance team's review, were there any internal or external reviews of the materials you submitted, particularly the NPR, the 340B reporting, bond covenant compliance, those materials, were they reviewed by anyone outside the organization?
Outside the organization, Laura, do you want to address our bond, the company that works with us on our bonds?
Yes. So on the bond covenants, we work with a company called Echo Financial that is a kind of a bond advisor for us, and they help us to compile our rolling 12-month look back biannually that we put together for the bank. And that's based on our income statement, balance sheet, and cash flow dynamics.
But Dr. Walsh, to your question, not specific to what was submitted to Green Mountain Care Board, but this is something we do all the time with Echo. Is that accurate, Laura?
Yes. I don't have any question about what we submitted in terms of the income statement, the balance sheet, and the cash flow to the Green Mountain Care Board. It's a known entity that I have an issue with the rate decomposition sheet. We do not have the ability to produce that in our systems. We don't have NPR at a payer level here. So I have to create an allocation model, and the allocation model has gotten better over time. And so when you compare it to previous years, there are large variances. And I've explained that to the team several times. And there continues to be issues surrounding that. If you want to refer me to another CFO that does this really well, I'd happily work with them.
Well, I appreciate that. And it kind of aligns with the next question that I had. It would your organization benefit from some temporary outside help to ensure that the future submissions are complete and usable? And if you were open to it, what would that best look like for you?
It's interesting. It's a good question. So as we are involved in the New England Collaborative Health Network, they actually use a company. Part of that is Ovations Health, which has a strong track record in checking cost reporting and checking other financial reporting. And actually, just in a discussion last night, I would like for that, because we got our disproportionate share statement with another reduction in disproportionate share payments for next year. I'm concerned about, are we doing everything appropriately on our cost reporting? Because I can't understand how we keep getting a decrease. So that would be something we'd be very interested in looking at and partnering with them. And there's now 5 Vermont hospitals that are actually in that collaborative that maybe we would all benefit from that.
That's interesting, and that might be true. And the surprise in falling out of certain standings that affect income, you're not the only facility that we've been hearing that from. So we're not sure if this is something changing at the federal level or
Great
somehow what's going on. So
great point.
As you mentioned, Chris, at the outset, it's a chaotic time, and I am, and I know our staff are sensitive to that.
As we are to you all too. You guys have a very tough time to be doing the important job that you're doing. Sorry.
No. So if we were to ask you to return in 3 to 6 months with corrected documentation, do you think your team would be able to meet that timeline?
We would find a way to do that.
Okay. Well, that's my final question, but I really want to circle back to recognizing the recognition that you all are receiving from national organizations, noting how well you're delivering care to your community, how aligned that is. And it's my personal sense that I'd like to do everything we can to help make sure that you're able to continue doing that far into the future.
Thanks. Well, you may not remember this, Dr. Walsh, but I believe it was 2 years ago. You had asked us if we had solicited any ideas from our staff in terms of cost reduction and revenue enhancement. And that was the start of the Bright Ideas for a Healthy Future program. Some people wanted to call it the Tom Walsh Memorial Program, but we did have to put our foot down and say, no, it has to have a different name than that. But thank you for that recommendation 2 years ago. And just want you to know we're learning and listening.
Well, that's very kind. That would have sounded like I'd passed. So I'm glad that you did not have a memorial for me. It's a pleasure to see you and hear what you're doing. Thanks for answering my questions.
You bet. Thank you.
Member Holmes?
Hi, yep, I think I'm up next. So Mr. Darty, I do want to echo the appreciation for a lot of the innovative efforts you and your clinical leaders have taken to achieve, some of these high patient satisfaction scores and, innovative efforts to improve health in your community. It is much appreciated. But I also have to share, and this is really directed, I think, to your CFO, Ms. Bruno, that I really find, honestly, this budget submission to be really disappointing. I don't think I've said this to a hospital before, but there are incomplete, missing tables, data that don't tie out, that are internally inconsistent, limited answers to our staff's questions. And I know that our staff has reached out for many months to try and work with you to ensure that this budget submission is complete. We got materials late last night, incomplete responses to many of the questions that are an attempt to reconcile your submission. It is really hard to properly evaluate your budget when we just have discrepancies, inconsistencies, and unanswered questions. And I have to say that the burden is on the hospital, right, to submit a budget and to submit the materials that support that request. And at this point in my review, and I'm trying to catch up with the materials that were sent last night, but they're not even complete. And many of the questions were about discrepancies in the submission. I have to say, I don't feel the burden has been met at this point. So I need to be clear on that. And again, I don't think I've ever said that to a hospital in the 10 years that I've been doing this. So with that, there are questions in here attempting to reconcile the submission, and the answers did not appear. So what can we be looking forward to in terms of a resubmission of these answers?
We can keep working on it and produce a resubmission in the next couple of weeks if that works.
Yeah, it's really important. It's really important that we understand, where these numbers are coming from and making sure that they tie out. That we have to make sure that we're doing that, and we need that data from you.
Yeah, from my perspective, you're asking for data slightly different, the same data, 3 slightly different ways, and expecting it all to tie out. And it just takes a lot of time to do that. And so that's why I don't have a lot of time.
Well, we have to ensure that the data that's presented 3 different ways actually makes sense, right? We have to pick one of them.
Right.
We have to ensure that the data is accurate.
Asking for labor expense in 3 different, slightly different ways, and then expecting it to tie perfectly, or asking for rate in 3 slightly different ways and expecting it to tie. It's challenging. It just takes time, and time is our financial condition is precious.
I understand your financial condition, and we're very worried about it. And so we really need to ensure that the data that is submitted is accurate. I believe you're reporting.
How does net payer revenue on a payer level, at an extremely granular level, clarify anything for you? I mean, I'm looking at the full P&L and trying to solve our problem.
Understood. But your regulator is asking you questions, and it is your obligation to answer those questions.
Okay, I'll do my best.
Thank you.
And we will bring resources in to make sure that we make that happen and turn it around, as Dr. Walsh suggested.
I appreciate that. Some of these are higher level. So on slide 15, you're reporting $93 million in NPR FPP for fiscal year 25, and that's down, I think, from the budget of 98.7. It wasn't clear to me that is consistent with what was actually submitted in projected NPR for fiscal year 25 in adaptive. I believe if you look at the submitted payer revenue table, it looks like a much higher number was submitted.
Okay. We'll
So
work
if you
on
could,
it.
those are some of the levels of inconsistencies. You have the rural community hospital demonstration project, and you've listed it as a high potential financial impact. And it was in that upper right quadrant. In the narrative, though, I noticed that you stated that from a financial standpoint, our inpatient Medicare revenue from RCHD should be very similar to the reimbursement pattern we are accustomed to as a part of the Medicare Dependent Hospital Low Volume Adjusted Program. So where is the high financial impact?
Medicare dependent hospital and low volume status are worth about 3.9 million to us annually in net revenue.
In
And so we need
multiple
to
ways.
replace that revenue. We don't know if
Right.
the federal government will continue that program. And it's very high stakes for us to continue that revenue stream, even at the same level.
So in multiple ways, it also offers us the opportunity to do swing beds, which could be about a $700,000 net patient revenue increase to us. It also offers us the opportunity, we believe, to get the OPPS increase from Medicare, which is 7.1%. And that's our growing area, hospital outpatient services such as MRI, outpatient surgery, endoscopy. So these are over and above the uncertainty of the Medicare dependent hospital status.
Okay, so when you're projecting it, are you assuming the Medicare dependent hospital reimbursement rates or the RCHD reimbursement rates?
We kept everything as is, as if we were continuing the Medicare dependent hospital status. We had it evaluated with our cost report consultant, and it looks like we would be about even in terms of the reimbursement, the basic reimbursement level between those two programs. So we'll modeled it as though we were continuing the MDH.
Okay, so you modeled that as if you were continuing the MDH, but the H266, you didn't model as if you would. I mean, so, and the H266 you've actually modeled how?
Is this the drug cap?
Yeah.
It's our assumption, as Chris stated, that we're going to operate more like a critical access hospital and wouldn't be subject to the cap. And we need to do more research on that.
Because that would be assuming that you're under RCHD reimbursements.
Correct.
So there's internal inconsistencies in the assumptions around reimbursements. Yes or no? I'm really trying to understand this here. And I understand that you are in a situation where you're unsure which of these two payment models you're going to be under.
So it's a great question. So actually, there's really not inconsistency. We use the Medicare, and I'll just try and explain real quick. We use the Medicare dependent hospital for IPPS because it's known to us, but also because our cost accounting consultant said that that would be virtually the same under the Rural Community Hospital Demonstration Project. We did not go through at this point in time that full analysis of what it would look like under the Rural Community Hospital Demonstration Project. So for the purpose of the budget, we just used as an assumption that it would be virtually the same. As we make that final selection, we're going through that process of making sure that it's right on target with the Medicare dependent hospital IPPS payments. I hope that helps, Jessica.
No, I appreciate that, Mr. Dougherty. I'm trying to understand this, honestly.
And I'm sorry that we've made it confusing and complicated. Sorry about that.
No, I appreciate that. You mentioned in the narrative that you are hoping to replace that $14 million that you currently received with OneCare with this new Medicare SSP, MSSP, and Medicaid global budgets. And it sounds like you've partnered with a new Medicare ACO. Can you confirm that you'll be able to replace that $14 million between the two programs with this new partnership?
Yeah, we actually should be able to do better. So in that 14 million from OneCare, I think everybody on the Green Mountain Care Board knows it's really a modified fee-for-service program. So really, they were front-loading the fee-for-service payments from Medicare and Medicaid. We're going to continue to get those payments. Plus, for Medicare patients, not Medicare Advantage, not Medicaid patients, in this ACO, we'll also get additional payments above the fee-for-service payments for annual Medicare wellness visits, timely follow-up visits, and other quality outcomes. And then we also will be able to get a cut of the shared savings for traditional Medicare patients. We have no downside risk in that, and we can share up to 50% of the upside. So from a Medicare perspective, we believe we're going to traditional Medicare. We believe we could get anywhere between $600,000 and $700,000 better than what we get from OneCare at this point in time because of the shared savings plan. Medicaid is a whole different story at this point in time, but fee-for-service should be equal, I'd imagine, in Medicaid from what we had in OneCare, and that is concerning if it's not. But also, what we liked from what we had seen from the Medicaid program and their consultants is that there are very specific incentives right now planned for the Medicaid global budgeting that I believe we would do very well in, because it had to do with health equity, had to do with patient outcomes, patient satisfaction, and I believe overuse of resources. So things that we've done really well across the board, and we believe we will be able to capture that and maybe a little bit more than what we were getting from OneCare. OneCare was 14 million combined, but it was a lot of just a pass-through of fee-for-service payments.
Okay, no, I'm glad for that, because that seemed like an area of uncertainty, and with your financial situation,
We
the
can't
less
afford
uncertainty
that.
around it. Right, exactly. What you talked about increasing productivity, and I can appreciate that, having seen some of the productivity numbers. I'm glad you're working on that. And the goal of 75th percentile is lofty, and I recognize that's going to take some time to get there. But what are you assuming in the fiscal year 26 budget in terms of productivity? What percentile for, how much are you moving towards the 75th percentile from the current roughly mostly 25th percentile of many of your practice areas?
So we just started getting harvested data from Strata in April. And so we're really working with the directors to understand the data better. And I think I'll have a better projection of that as we get closer to the start of the fiscal year. I don't have it at the moment.
Okay, so right now there's no increase baked into the budget in terms of productivity.
Not at
increase.
a specific percentile level, no.
Okay. And can you also tell us how there's been some statutory changes, and I wanted to understand how you will ensure that variable pay for fiscal year 26 is going to align with state health reform goals? Cost containment, universal access, elimination of unnecessary expenditures, sustainable financing.
Variable pay for administrative?
Yep.
So we don't actually have a variable pay program. We have an at-risk program. So my salary has about 20% of my salary is at risk, and it's based on performance. I think it's interesting to note that actually the way the Loan Institute has evaluated us is taking my salary, what I actually make, whether there's variable or fixed pay in there, comparing that to the average EVS worker in this organization. And we were top decile in the United States. We were number one in Vermont. We got an A grade from the Loan Institute, and we were top decile in that. I not expecting, you've seen these financial results. I'm not expecting a big increase in 2026.
But I can appreciate that, and that is a remarkable achievement on that. There is recent statutory changes that require, it appears that it requires the board to ensure that actually all hospitals do include variable pay and that the incentive plans are aligned with state healthcare reform goals. So we have now an obligation to ensure that, hence my question.
How are
So-
other hospitals ensuring that?
Well, that is a question that I'm asking all the hospitals as this recent legislation has happened. So I'm asking the same question of all the hospitals, and there's going to be an expectation of a submission of those variable pay and incentive plans so that we can ensure that they align with state health reform goals. So
Okay, we'll take
Well,
that back.
Yeah, I should have looked into that in more detail, and I'll do so and work with our board on that.
great. And I just wanted to, I know you said there's no service line eliminations planned. I just want to also ensure there's no reductions in service, discontinuing a service at a specific location or cutting back hours or anything like that we're not aware of.
No, I mean, the biggest thing would be, it would actually be enhancing service that is offered is if we do convert primary care to the federally qualified health center, it will move it out of BMH and move it into the federally qualified health center where they get twice the payment for primary care that we do. But actually, the reason why we're partnering for this for federally qualified health centers is to enhance primary care, to enhance dental services, and to enhance outpatient mental health services. There's nothing, that we're contemplating in terms of service line reductions, short of elimination. Even hours of operation, I don't believe there's anything. I think probably the biggest thing that we have as a challenge is finding talent. I was talking with Dr. Avdij earlier today, and we've lost the physician, the oncologist that we had here from Cheshire. And fortunately, we have somebody filling in at this point who's sensational, but that may not be a long-term solution. And so if there is no long-term solution, that would be a real challenge to us to provide high-quality care without the right clinicians. So nothing that's planned. I just also can't guarantee that something may not happen that trips us up and that does create a change to services, but nothing's planned at this point.
No, I appreciate that. We just are trying to ensure that we understand all of the service line reductions or eliminations in the current budget. And there will be a notification policy around any future, changes to service lines that will be coming out soon. Also in alignment with the statute. That's changed a lot of statutory changes. So a lot of the questions revolve around ensuring that we're doing our job based on statute. I think those are all of my questions. I appreciate it. I understand the financial struggles you're in, and I appreciate your innovative ways to try and overcome them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Merman, do you have any questions?
I just have a couple, thanks. So we have the budget slide up here, that's great. Can I just have a few questions on it? So the year to date is middle of the fiscal year, or is that after the first 2 quarters?
Yeah, this was January. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. It was March. Yeah, it was
in the second quarter. Sorry. Okay. All right. And then can you just walk me through, sorry about the ED group question again, because I'm trying to wrap my head around this, because it sounds to me like previously you contracted with Cheshire through where would it be in this one? Is it the professional fees or the labor?
Professional fees.
In professional fees, and then, but then BMH had the professional revenue.
We had the professional, yes, and we had the professional revenue with Cheshire, yes.
With Cheshire, and then now when you're switching to Blue Water, you,
They're taking the revenue and billing it, and we are taking a reduced fee.
okay, and that goes in, it's now in labor?
That is,
Or still a
no, that's in
professional
that professional
Okay,
fees
so it
line.
stays a professional, okay.
Do
And
you
so
see the
you're,
853
yeah,
variance?
okay.
Yeah.
So that's
It's
the,
not
okay, so,
all that. That's not all of that 853, but it's a portion of it.
okay, okay, and so all right, so let me just, so it's costing BMH, from what I think you said, is it, maybe I'll ask this, sorry, let me ask this question. Is it costing BMH less to contract with Blue Water than Cheshire?
I think it'll be about net neutral in the end, but we need to see what our experience is of not having the revenue.
Well,
And,
but,
okay,
but then
But
there's
it's
other things,
costing from a
Dr.
cost.
Merman.
Yeah, from a cost
There's
perspective, it's
overhead
less.
because we're not billing for those professional fee services. There's overhead costs that we reduce. Plus, as everybody knows, every dollar in net patient revenue, we get taxed at 6%. So that reduction in net patient revenue, also we get to not have to pay that as provider tax as well.
Okay. And then how much net patient revenue less do you expect to get by not having that ED group revenue?
It's a kind of a moving target because the majority of our volume in the ED is self-pay and Medicaid. And so as Chris was mentioning earlier, our reimbursement level or our net patient revenue level in the ED professional volume is not great. But we've estimated it around just a little over $1 million.
Okay.
I mean, I can't give you an exact number because our payer mix is different all the time, but I think that's a
Because you
good
guys really
estimate.
work in gross, I think, and then
Yeah.
it gets netted out as it comes out.
Exactly. So the contractual gets netted out, and then there's a certain amount of that that's going to go to bad debt because we have a lot of self-pay uninsured patients, which we are, our financial counselor is going straight into the ED to sign people up for the financial assistance program for free care. But there's a certain portion of them that it will wind up being bad debt.
So that gets to a question that was mentioned earlier. You said you were trying to correct bad debt. How do you correct the bad debt, I guess, when you're talking about this year's budget?
We have an early out self-pay vendor that we're switching, we're moving away from because the collection rate, our experienced collection rate with them is lower than we need it to be. And so we're moving to actually the same vendor that we have as our collections vendor, which is the difference on self-pay is from 0 to 120 days. That's your kind of early out. And then there's the back half of bad debt, which is the 121 to 365 days, which is collections. We're going to align our all of that with our collections vendor, and we hope that we'll get a better return rate.
Okay, thank you.
And most of there's like a funny, someone's unmuted back there.
So what I was saying in the narrative is, we're really trying to reduce our bad debt and our deductions, obviously, overall. We've had challenges getting people to sign up for free care, though we have an extremely generous free care plan that many people qualify for in our county. But we have a challenge getting people to sign up for it.
All right, well, thank you for that. And then most of my questions were asked and answered through the presentation and the other board members. But the one other one I had was, you mentioned in here a recovery plan. And I was just wondering if that recovery plan is something you could provide to the Green Mountain Care Board.
Oh, the actual quantified recovery plan?
Well, it's mentioned in the narrative that there is a recovery plan, so I just,
Right. So I mean,
yeah,
what I would
this
call our recovery,
comprehensive financial recovery plan.
yeah. So, the quadrant slide that I showed previously is kind of the qualitative version, and we have a savings plan which has each of those projects and a savings amount associated to them in a more of an Excel kind of a finance way. And I think I could share a summary version of that, which might give you a better idea of when we expect the savings from each of these projects to come to fruition.
I think that'd be really, I think, helpful to see. I mean, I know you have a lot of work to do, and I don't want to add work to do, but I would, if you've done the work and we can take a look at it, I think that would be just helpful for us and understanding where you are and where you're trying to get to. So
yeah, we've shared that extensively with our bank and have projections, income statement projections that we've provided to them to assure them that we are focused.
Okay. And just one more thing on the rural community hospital designation, kind of just sorry to repeat the timeline on this because I'm trying to understand this. So it sounds like you're going to the board at the end of this month. Are you expecting to get a decision from the board on that day, or is this going to be another iterative process?
No.
My real question is, are we going to be able to get a decision on your decision? Are we going to be able to get your decision prior to voting on your budget so we understand where you're going?
Yes, we've had discussions with our board, so it is still an iterative process, but on the 22nd, it's really our go, no-go decision, and that will be with our board, and we have time allotted to dig into that deeply. Getting all these answers from the MAC about OPPS and other things are going to be vitally important to making that a good decision. I hate to say, Dr. Merman, I think the problem is going to be is I do not believe the federal government will have changed their stance on Medicare dependent hospital low volume adjustment by the end of August. So we're going to have to weigh that uncertainty into that final decision with our board. But short answer is yes, we will make a decision on the 22nd.
And just also from my understanding, so that your understanding is that the Medicare dependent hospital small volume adjustment is potentially something that CMS, CMMI are going to eliminate, but they have yet to decide. And the no-go for the rural community hospital demonstration project is October 1st at the latest.
Yes, yes. So well stated. So by law, CMS can't fund Medicare dependent hospital low volume adjustment if the Congress hasn't agreed to that. And so right now, they've already actually stated that, effective October 1st will be a regular PPS hospital from a Medicare perspective. That's happened in the past, and then they have given us retroactive payments to bring us up. Senator Welch has a bill in Congress to make it permanent and to rebase the Medicare year, but that's been kicked around for, I think even when Senator Leahy was in office, that was being kicked around.
Okay, and sorry, I think we've talked about this before, and I apologize to take everybody's time, but the Medicare dependent hospital is a status that needs to be re-upped by Congress on an annual basis.
That is correct. Every once in a while, they'll make it for longer than a year, but this right now, it's been sort of every 6 months. It just keeps getting kicked down the road at this point.
Okay, and the rural community, I looked at it briefly. The rural community hospital demonstration project looked like it's been going on for almost 20 years, but it keeps these 5-year. Where are they in the 5 years? Like, if you signed up now, is it 5 years or is it
5
where
years?
Are you in that
Yes.
cycle? Okay.
Great question. Thanks for looking that up. But yes, it would be a 5-year, really guaranteed having that at this point in time, which goes into that decision making for our board.
Okay, and I'm sorry, just one more question on the topic, and I'm sure I have the information right here, but how many staffed beds do you have?
So Jackie, what is it? We're running about 25, 30 staff beds.
Yeah, Laura had collected this information yesterday, but yes, staff beds very different than licensed beds, and about 30.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you're kind of right on the cusp of being a critical access hospital from a size standpoint.
Yeah, yeah, and from the cost reporting, what allows us to qualify for the Rural Community Hospital Demonstration Project is even though we're licensed for 60 beds, on the cost report, Laura, it's like 47,
Yeah, 45.
45,
cost
so that
reporting standpoint.
qualifies.
Okay, all right, well, thank
And
you.
I think it's worth noting that if, at any point within the program, if it's not working for us, we can opt out. We would prefer to do that to align with the end of our fiscal year. So we're kind of thinking about it in single year increments. But we have it, we would have a guaranteed admission to the program for 5 years.
Great, thank you. And at some point, I'll just have to figure out, because a head still lingers around, but no one's ever sort of had the discussion of what that hospital status would be like in a head. So we need to sort of
Great point.
approach that topic. So
Great point.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll try and be quick since we're a little over time. I did want a small comment on the discussion about the data and the accuracy of the data. This is a very serious process. It's a quasi-judicial process. You're making representations that need to be totally accurate, and it takes more time for the hospital and for our staff if it's not reliable. So definitely need to avoid any issues on that front going forward. And just comment that this is an important hospital, one that we feel very strongly about needs to be there for the community. Some of the data may not seem that important on the hospital side, but we rely on this to make really important decisions, particularly where this hospital is. And I think Member Holmes referenced this. The data needs to be right for the good of the hospital to have its ability to make the best case that it can to get the budget it's asking for. So I just want to emphasize how critical that is. I'm a lawyer. I'm used to that kind of process, but that's how we should be approaching this. So I just wanted to reiterate the importance of that. Just a couple quick questions. Slide 11, there was the contractor spend, I think, was about $2 million off from budget. And I was wondering if you could walk us through some of the variance there from budget. What drove that? What are these contractors and why are they significantly higher?
Are you talking about the actuals, the year-to-date May?
Yeah, slide 11,
Gina,
I believe.
can you go back to that?
Yes.
One of them was the revenue cycle consultant, Barry Dunn, that we brought on to do a full transformation of our revenue cycle. And that's part of, the process by which we're reducing our AR, evaluating our denials and, really bringing our revenue cycle back in line with where it should be. That's a big piece of this. Another piece of it is the non-recurring is some legal fees for litigation that we had pending previously. Another piece is legal fees around the unionization efforts at BMH. Those are the big non-recurring buckets.
Is that legal expense completed or is that case still outstanding?
The litigation?
Yeah.
Portions of that are continuing. Now we expect our insurance to kick in on that at some point before the beginning of the next fiscal year.
Okay, and I'm just trying to understand if that's another risk or liability potential, or are you the plaintiff?
It's a liability potential.
And do you expect to have any, it's very hard to predict litigation, but do you have any expectation as to whether or not that matter will resolve in 2026? Or is it
I'm not
too
sure
early?
about that. Yeah, I'm not sure.
I usually think of it like stages. You go by the motion to dismiss, you go to discovery, you go to summary judgment, you go pretrial. The further you are in that continuum, generally, the further along you are in maybe resolving it.
We're pretty far into it, but I don't know exactly when the conclusion will be.
Okay. And then the contract temps, 1.5 million off from budget. Is that primarily traveling nurses, or can you explain
Yes,
further what
so-
that is?
Yeah, so we have historically under budgeted this line. So I budgeted $1 million in FY25. We know that we will spend more than $1 million, but it's our strategy, obviously, to move away from travelers and to full-time employees. This is less RN and more allied health and radiology and lab. So we were using quite a few phlebotomists, travelers, as well as some imaging techs.
Okay.
Which we have moved largely away from at this point.
On your FTEs, there was a spreadsheet you submitted on the FTEs. It looked like in admin, it went from 36 FTEs in 2025 to a budgeted 43. And I'd like a little clarity around why that number's going up.
Which one? Which one is this?
It's line 30, General Services Administration, non-clinical FTEs.
In the labor expense tab or in the
Staff FTE tab.
which I don't know which workbook here. I'm not sure what you're looking at.
Oh, sorry. It's the BMH staff FTE. It's the chart of the FTEs for the organization. The title of the document is BMH staff FTE.
That I submitted or that your team created?
I don't know the
I don't
answer
have
to that.
that.
I guess I
If
can
you could
ask.
share it, I'll comment on it.
It's the adaptive submission for staff by department, Laura.
Okay, I don't have that open at the moment. So you're seeing an increase on administrative FTEs?
Yes, correct. Yep. It says, so it's lines 28 through 30.
It may
General
just
services.
be it may just be we may have just bucketed those as non-clinical. I don't know if they're necessarily administrative. We did have an increase in some of our EVS employees, for example, because we're moving away from an outside contractor for some of our cleaning services and bringing it back in-house. So we had a headcount increase in that area. It could have been in that area, just not clinical.
Okay.
I wouldn't call that administrative, though.
Why don't you take a look at that one? It's lines 28 through
Okay.
30 on that submission. It just struck me as odd that it was going up from 36 to 43 in that bucket.
I think
I'm
that's
wondering-
what that is.
Okay. And I'm wondering if there's opportunity there. And then the other one that stuck out to me was medical group administration. And it says non-clinical FTEs is 115. But that doesn't seem possibly right that you have 115 non-clinical FTEs in medical group administration.
No, that's wrong.
Okay. All right. Why don't we take a look at that one as well? Because if you have 115, I think we have an opportunity to reduce expenses.
Yeah, we might want to look at that. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So this goes to my point, because like we make decisions on this and,
Yeah.
and God forbid we make a decision because it says this and we think this, and all of a sudden we've done something that is not beneficial.
Right. No, I can appreciate that.
Okay. And then slide 12 is the balance sheet. If you could possibly bring that up. I think it's just the next one.
Gina, you
I'm
want
sorry,
to move forward one slide? Gina?
Great. Okay. You may know this off the top of your head, but do you know how many days cash on hand you currently have?
We have a bond covenant to maintain 100 days cash on hand. And we are meeting that covenant.
So as of today, you're over 100 days cash on hand?
Correct.
And do you know approximately how many dollars equate to one day cash on hand?
I would have to do that. I would have to do that calculation. I can get back to you on that.
Okay, and then
I can tell you how much revenue on average we generate in a day. It's about 820,000.
total
That's
revenue.
gross. Gross. Yeah.
And then the drug price cap bill, I appreciated the discussion on that and the uncertainty, which I understand. What is the potential exposure on that if it were to apply? How much money would that be?
So I sent that over in my responses yesterday. I've estimated about 4 to 5 million annually net.
Okay, great. That's all I had. Thank you all very much for your presentation. I'm going to take some public comment and then we can dismiss you for the day. Oh, sorry, Mr. Sutter.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. So this gets to reporting issues. Devo relies on our hospital reporting for provider tax billing. I know you've been waiting on a final FY24 audit. I was curious if you had an updated timeline on that, as right now Devo still cannot true up.
I do. We were
provider tax.
holding off because we hadn't received our waiver for the bond covenant until about a week ago. So now our auditors are able to finalize the FY24 financials.
And what is your
So-
timeline for getting the 24 actuals updated to us?
In the next couple of, I'm hoping to get them in the next couple of weeks. We just need to get them, get our auditor to sign off.
Okay, thank you.
I'll turn to the healthcare advocate for any, Mr. Sutter, are you all set?
I am. Thank you, Chair Foster.
The healthcare advocate for any comments or questions?
Yeah, two quick ones. I know we're over time. The board staff presentation, it looked like your outpatient Medicare cost coverage was around 22%, which is the lowest, I believe, of any of the hospitals. I'm wondering if you could comment on that, because I know that's a pretty, I think around 80% of your revenue is outpatient, if that's correct. I'm just wondering if you could comment on the accuracy of that.
On Medicare?
Mm-hmm.
I would have to look, let me look into that and get back to you. It is accurate that about 75% of our Medicare volume is outpatient.
Okay.
What did you say? 22% sounds low. So I'll take a look at that.
Just something to look into. Yep. Thank you. And the other question was, you mentioned challenges with patients getting access to free care, particularly like signing up for financial assistance. I'm wondering if you could be a little bit more detailed.
No, not issues with access to it. Issues with signing up. We need people to actually sign the papers and take the initiative when we present them with the paperwork to sign. And sometimes, believe it or not, it is difficult to get people to do that. They have to produce some financial data on themselves to prove that they qualify for the program. And we make a lot of calls and approach a lot of people. You know, we try to get people when they're in our facility because that's the best opportunity to get them signed up, but it requires a certain amount of follow through, and we're having a challenge with that.
Are there certain items of paperwork that are particularly difficult for people to complete? Or is there a common trend about some of the barriers?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't want to share their credit card statements, their bank statements and things like that. I would say that that's the biggest hurdle.
Okay, thank you.
But we need that in order to make sure that they qualify.
Okay, I'll take public comment via raise the hand.
Yes, I'm Zachary Pratt. I live in Rutland. And I was wondering, is the RRMC going to be happening after this, or did I miss it? Or do I have to link in again to get to that meeting?
No, sir. We are a few minutes over time with the Brattleboro hearing, so
Okay,
you can stay right on this one. We'll probably take a 10-minute break. We'll probably start around 2:45-ish.
excellent. I'll see you back at 2:45-ish then. Thank
Great.
you.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for being here. Cool.
Yep.
Any other public comment? Okay, great. All right, well, we'll take a 10-minute recess and we'll come back and we'll move to Rutland. Mr. Doherty, Ms. Bruno, and team, thank you very much for your presentation and for your time today and for your work in this difficult situation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, have a good day.